Welcome to this episode of Expedition to Soul. This is a coffee chat replay. So, once per week, I host a coffee chat in our community space. It's hosted in a software called The Circle. It's where we host our communities for our programming. And every Sunday, most every Sunday, I host a coffee chat in there where we vision cast for the week ahead. We use practical tools like planning, but also the magical act of vision casting to align our lives to the way that we want to feel. And I usually bring a little extra oomph to these conversations as well. So today's podcast episode is a coffee chat replay. Sit back, unwind, grab a pen and paper, grab your planner, your vision board, and let's freaking do this. If the word witch makes you feel full of power and excitement, if you love personal development but loathe boring love and light conversation, if a sexy combo of witchery and inner work piques your interest, you're in the right place. Welcome home, Magic Maker, and welcome to Expedition to Soul, the podcast brought to you by the Sisters Enchanted. Thank you. All right, this is our Sunday coffee chat. If this is your first Sunday coffee chat, welcome and thank you for coming and hanging out. My goal for these Sunday coffee chats is to encourage you to take the wheel of your life, to vision cast for the week ahead through the very practical matter of planning for the week ahead. And then, of course, we always bring, or I always bring some notes, something fun to talk about. And today we are going to talk about acceptance and validation, wanting acceptance and validation from others as part of our coffee chat. But first, your regular call to action to think about your week ahead. This is what we do here, what I tell you about in the Sunday coffee chats. It's based on my experience as a teacher and person working with people with learning differences. So I am very knowledgeable in how a menopausal brain might work, how an ADHD brain might work. And these are the practices to put into place when you want to do things in your life or make space for yourself in your life. So the first thing I want you to do is ask yourself, did you set an intention for this year? Did you set an intention for this lunar cycle, for this season? Do you know how you want to feel? If you don't, that's okay, but that's where we start. What is your kind of baseline right now, the thing that you are going for in your life? From there, I want you to think about this next week and start to put everything on your calendar. Doing this act of filling in your calendar, it allows you to see where you're living in alignment with how you want to feel, the vision for your life, and where you are not living in alignment. So if you want to feel passionate and you want to feel brave and bold, but your calendar this week is full of the same humdrum things, or else has nothing on it that would require you to feel passionate, brave, or bold, then you are not living in alignment with the way that you want to feel. So looking ahead for the week ahead, this is where we're going to be able to do this check with ourselves. Are we living in alignment? Are you living in alignment with how you want to feel, the intention you set for some period of time? Now, we teach lunar intentions and solar goals here. So we always start with how do you want to feel, which is very lunar and inner based. And then the goal, the thing that you can do to feel that way. So if you have goals right now, also, is that on your vision for next week? When you're planning for the week ahead, I love to use a mix of a paper planner. So I use our Sisters Enchanted planner. And then I'm a big fan of Google Calendar, huge fan. It keeps my life running Google Calendar. So I will sort of plot my week on paper, and then I will make sure everything's in my Google Calendar with reminders set up to remind me of where I'm supposed to be and when, because I would forget if I didn't have a reminder going off. And we start planning with the immovable objects. So what is immovable in your calendar? That would be if you work at certain times, that's immovable. It's going to go in your calendar. If you have appointments next week, those are immovable objects. They go in your calendar. If you have committed to date nights or time with friends, if you take a class, whatever it is, immovable objects, they go on your calendar first. From there, you want to really have a personal sort of assessment of your energy and check in with yourself. What do you have capacity for, energy for outside of those things? So in my life this coming week, I have a lot of work to do over the next 2 weeks, like tons. And so if I was putting on my calendar, oh, well, I'm also want to, I don't know, do this big project, or I want to put in like dinners out with people or something, there wouldn't be room. Like I wouldn't have the energetic capacity. I'd feel overwhelmed. I'd probably flake out. I'd feel bad about it. I'd feel bad about myself. So there's no space. When you put all of your immovable objects on your calendar, it allows you to see the life that you are creating in advance. You can pull out and say, like, zoom out. What is this life that I am creating? Put the things on your calendar that matter to you. And also, if you do this and you find your calendar is very full of all things that don't matter to you, but you're stuck doing them, that's a really great call to action for you to consider. Are you ready to make some changes in your life? Why haven't you done it yet? What's missing that will allow you to find the power within you to create the life that you want to live? So planning for the week ahead is very much a practice in vision casting. It can be part of your spiritual practice as well, because your spiritual practice is connecting you to your higher self, your inner power. If you believe in a higher power, it's connecting you to all of that. And then how you're living your life is it's the embodiment of that connection. So if you're a person who has this spiritual practice, but your life isn't an embodiment of the practice and how you want to feel, what's it all for? So take the time. I love to do this on Sundays because I love to look at the week as starting on Mondays. I have a real thing. It drives me crazy when Saturday and Sunday are separate on a calendar. I have a family member. We're at odds on this. That the family member thinks they should always be separate. And I think we don't separate the weekend. They're friends. Saturday and Sunday stay together. My week starts Monday. So I like to do this on Sundays and then know for the week ahead what is coming. Now, you can also do this, incorporate into this weekly vision casting process of yours, this practice, looking at your money. Where are you going to spend money this week? Is working on eating different foods or moving your body in different ways. Or if you are a person who stands up every morning in front of your closet thinking you hate your body and you hate everything in there and you have nothing to wear, but you got a closet full of clothes, it's also a beautiful way to look ahead and say, well, how do I want to feel this week? And pick today, what's going to make me feel that way? And pull those clothes out, pull that food out, and really create the vision for the week ahead and cast it all out and create the vision into being. Now that we have addressed that, when it comes to doing this and then actually living it, one of the hiccups for people tends to be with looking for acceptance from others or validation, which are two different things. So we will make decisions based on whether or not we feel like we will belong or be accepted. So if you put on your calendar something that's totally wild, I love to use the example of a woman who maybe wants to go for a walk or a hike by themselves. And then some people in their life might say, well, that's not safe. Why would you do that? You don't know where you're going. And really make them feel like question their desire or their ability to do something. And this is where the acceptance comes in. So is there something that you want to put on your calendar for next week that you're hesitating to put on there because you just don't want to hear what somebody else has to say about it? Or you don't want to feel like you don't belong or like you are different than other people, or like the criticism might come in. Or if you work full time and every day at lunch, everybody gets takeout food and they eat the stuff in the break room or the coffee room in the office or whatever everybody does. Maybe you're like, no, I want to listen to this meditation and go for a walk, but all my workmates are going to, tease me about it because I'm not doing the thing that I said that I would, I'm not doing the thing I've always done. And then we make decisions based on being accepted by others and not based on our vision and our desires, and the life that we want to create. So I would ask yourself for sure, is there a something that you are hesitating to put on your calendar out of fear of not being accepted by other people? Or is there something that you're doing because it does make you feel accepted, but you don't necessarily love it? And adjust that for the week ahead. I see in the comments there might be some freezing, glitching. It could just be the software. I'm not sure. My internet looks good and strong on the bars that it is showing me. So hopefully it's all good on the replay for everybody. But consider that. Is there a decision that you're making based on acceptance and doing it because it makes you feel good to be accepted, but it doesn't make you feel good and like you're living the life you want to be living? Those are big questions to think about as you plan for your week ahead. The other one is validation and being validated by other people. So I see this come up where we will hold ourselves back, or folks will really hold themselves back because they feel like they have a circumstance in life that is just, too much. And they want everybody to know about that and tell them that it's okay for things to be hard, or like, yes, I get why you can't do it because of. And we really want to be, as people, validated in our experiences. Like, I mean, it's all over social media, right? If people share something and they really want to be validated for their experience. And so when you're planning your week ahead, if you're starting to tell yourself like, oh, well, I can't because I don't have the right kind of help, or I can't because it's just too hard, or I can't because I don't know, I don't have the money to do the thing, or I don't have the time to do the thing, I would ask yourself, slow down and ask if you aren't in some way seeking some sort of external validation from other people to confirm to you that, yes, my circumstance is too hard, therefore it's okay that I don't do this. Or if you're really just validating your own fears. So you can validate your own self, but you can validate yourself right into a corner, right into a stuck spot. So for me, for example, I am very cluttered. I'm a very cluttered person. So I can say, well, it's just too hard for me to pick up after myself because I'm so busy. Like I work, and then I homeschool, and then I have to help my grandparents out, and I'm always jumping from one thing to another. And so there's just no time for me to pause and like tidy up. That would add a whole other hour to my day. And just by saying that, I'm validating my experience, right? I'm validating myself and saying that I'm too busy, I don't have enough energy, I do too much to do this other thing. So be aware of where you might seek validation from others, but where you're also just really seeking validation from yourself to keep yourself backed into a corner that is not helping you at all. Is there a change you want to make in your life, but you're saying, well, I can't because, and then you're just really validating yourself in the stuck spot, and you're not moving past it. So for me, I could say, well, actually, I could tidy up for 5 minutes in between these activities. I'm going to pick a song, I'm going to play it, and I can queue up the playlist today so that I already know it for the week ahead, and I can set myself up for success instead of validating the things that are really making me feel not so great. And everybody does this. So is there something you want to be doing? If you want to be eating different, you want to be moving differently, you want to be having different relationships, you want to be making more money at work, how are you validating yourself into thinking that there's a barrier that you can't overcome? Because we're often mind ninjaing ourselves into believing these things that simply aren't true, making ourselves feel like everything's too hard or not possible. And so when you're vision casting for the week ahead, it's a really good opportunity to do that check with yourself and ask, am I just validating something for myself that's really keeping me stuck? All right. So your planning process, what are you doing this week? Is it in alignment with where you want to go? Is it in alignment with what you want to be doing in life? If it's not, can you fit in the different things that are meaningful and important to you right now? If you can't, it's time to ask yourself some questions, some hard questions. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to change something in your life so that you can live the life you want to be living? Think ahead. Where are you spending your money this week? What food are you eating? What clothes are you wearing? Who are you spending your time with? Is all of that in alignment with your vision for yourself, for your life? And then where are you making choices based on being accepted by others? And where are you making choices based on wanting validation? So either from other people, external validation, or that you're just validating yourself in something that's really keeping you stuck. And what can you do about it? What can you do about it? All right, let me check through the comments here. And there is weather hitting the East Coast today, rain coming all about, as I see some folks sharing, and with the internet perhaps being a little bit glitchy too. Vicky's got Mondays all planned out. Christiana goes to the car for a break. Rain, cold, heat, nobody gets it, but it's crucial for my nervous system to get outside. Yes, I love that, Christiana. I too cannot stay inside very long. It occurred to me a couple years ago. Obviously, I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 10 years. And I was thinking back about different jobs that I've had. And I only had a desk job once for like 3 months. And I was, spinning in my seat, bored out of my mind. And otherwise, I have worked things that allowed me to move, be creative and nimble. I've worked corporate type jobs, but always in a field environment where I was able to go places and move around. So, yeah, I feel like I have to be able to move, get like these transition points in my day. I totally get that, Christiana, for sure. Let's see here. Robin shared that from last week's calendar, tackled one huge project and its conclusion frees up for other goals. I love that. Made time, space, included sacred spiritual time daily, broke out comfort zone, went to a community event. I saw you sharing about that. So proud of you for doing that and getting out there. That's challenging for me to go to events where I don't know who will be there. Like what kind of people, how many people, what's the vibe going to be like? That is tricky for me as well. Tony shares people at work either are like, yeah, she's different and pay me no mind, or want to know what and why I'm doing. Just minding your business. I like it. Let's see here. I'm the queen of rationalization, validating things that keep me stuck. Like validation word, like the validation word there. Yeah. The validation, when we validate ourselves and others, validation is it's a powerful thing because it's important to learn to validate yourself and to not wait for other people to validate you. So in relationships, for example, I see this all the time as a company who has worked with women for years and years and years. I see it with women who feel like they're partners, women who have male partners in particular who feel like, they're not accepting or understanding or like stepping up or whatever it is, and then they really want to be validated in their experience. Like it's so hard. And I've been there too. Past me was the same way. Somebody validate me, listen to me word vomit about how hard everything is. And so when we can validate ourselves and say like, yes, you do not feel valued. You don't feel I don't feel valued. I don't feel like I'm getting what I'm asking for. That can be helpful to give ourselves that kind of hug and validate our thoughts and feelings. But what can happen though with that validation pretty quickly is that it turns into like the reason or the excuse to then say, well, I don't get what I need. Therefore, there's no way forward. And so it's a very, I think, fine line between giving yourself the like, yes, your feelings and emotions or thoughts are valid. And then the validating your behavior as a result of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. That's the tricky sort of thing where it's like, yes, all the feelings are valid. The behavior and the actions you're taking based on the feelings, though, is that really valid? Or is that you just hiding from the growth because the growth is scary? Or is that you hiding from your potential because it's outside of your comfort zone? Or is that you waiting for somebody else in your life to do something different, therefore making your life easier? And like this negative circle situation of, being validated and then just waiting for something to happen and reinforcing that so it happens all throughout your life. So learning to validate yourself and how you feel, I think, is important, because when we seek it from other people and then get frustrated that we don't get it, it's really no one's job to validate you. Like, it's just not. We're all different people. It's not your partner's job to validate you. It's not your kid's job to validate you. It's not your boss's job, your coworker's job. It's only your job to validate you. But then what happens is where that validation becomes the stopping point. It's like, well, see, I said it was so blah, blah, blah. Oh, see, I don't have, oh, see, and now I'm going to wait and wait and wait. So when you're doing your vision casting for the week ahead, it can be very helpful to do a check with yourself on that. If the thing that you want, if it's not there, if it's not in your calendar, if you can't make space, and you start to say, well, it's impossible because check yourself on that. Where are you not just validating your feeling, but then backing yourself into a corner and building this like cage of desiring to be valid and the reason why you can't do something? Because really then that's just this mask for hiding and for not being confident and for not taking, action and for not knowing what to do, but not taking the leap to find the answer, not believing in yourself. Like, that's what that really is. The circumstance, it's all that stuff. And that's a harder pill to swallow, to say, well, I just don't have the confidence. I just don't know who to ask for the direction. I don't know. I'm afraid of failing. It's easier to say, well, it's hard because than it is to say, I don't know what to do. I don't trust myself yet. That's a harder sentence to say, the harder sentence to get out of there. All right, let's see here. Oh, hey, Renee. Renee, or Sonoma in the comments, is sharing retired, so have nothing necessarily to do. Yeah, I see this on both. I talk about this when it comes to planning for the week ahead, that this is a theory that applies on politics as well. We're not talking about politics, so nobody gets started in the comments, but that the more left or the more right politics are, it's actually a horseshoe. So they become closer together in values and not farther away as we would think. And the same applies, I think, to people who are very busy in their day. Like I work full time. I homeschool. I help take care of my grandparents. Like, I'm a very busy person. And then also a person who's retired and has all the time in the world, but doesn't have anything meaningful to fill their time with right now. I think that the problem becomes more of a horseshoe, where the circumstance looks different, but both individuals are like, oh gosh, what am I doing with my life? Where's my day going? And it's a similar experience of the energy, but a different circumstance. So I do think that if you have all the time in the world, that can actually be just as overwhelming as having no time at all. And if you haven't had that experience, you might be like, that doesn't make any sense. But I think it is true that having all the time in the world and no clarity as to what to do with it, and having no time, I think becomes that horseshoe where they're actually very similar together, and not so far away, not so separate as people would think that they would be. All right, just checking back here. And anything else that is going in. Carl sharing, I'm often not realistic with the time I block out for different projects. Yeah. Any tips for being flexible and responsive to present moments while at the same time being disciplined and sticking to my schedule? Yeah. So Carl, it's a great question. When it comes to visioning for the week ahead, one of the things that I recommend for people is a couple things to this specific question that you're asking. Many people don't really think about how long it takes to do something. Women in particular, because of the way our brains work and the way that we sort of think that we can be heroes and do everything, don't pause to really think, well, how long does this take? So if you're a person who constantly finds yourself saying, I can do these 5 things, but you never get all 5 done because you run out of time, from whether it's laundry to doing a work project to like taking a family member somewhere, grocery shopping, whatever, it sounds wild, but set a timer and start timing yourself to see how long it actually takes. There are many things that you do that you're just like guessing you can do all these things. But if you don't know how long it takes to do it, then it's very challenging to actually plan for what you can do in a day. So when I used to work with people who had traumatic brain injuries or ADHD, women in particular who are menopausal, one of the very first things that we do, use timers in two ways. One, to time and see how long things take so that you have a better idea. And two, to set a stop time on how long things can take, especially if you're an overthinker. So if you're an overthinker and you get into this looking for acceptance, validating your own feelings, set a timer to stop at how much time you will spend on something. So if you want to write an email to somebody, make a phone call to a friend, pay a bill, and you know that you get really in your head about it, set a timer, 10 minutes. I cannot spend more than 10 minutes doing this thing. When the timer ends, you have to stop and walk away from it and go on to something else, no matter what. And if it means you have to redo it again later, then that's what you have to do. So using timers to understand your time usage in those two ways. One, to see how long things take, and two, to put a deadline, a stop time on how long you will spend doing it. The other thing is that with looking for your week ahead and planning the different things you want to do, leaving white space on your calendar. So I typically will, when I am putting on my calendar different things that I'm doing, I will leave like a half an hour of white space on the other side of like starting work, ending work, like a kid's activity, whatever it is that I have on there. I try to leave that half hour of white space. This way there is room to breathe. And remember too, that I really feel strongly that you can't have more than 3 real priorities in a week. So if you are a person who works, that's one right there. Second, if you have a family, that's going to fill in the second one. And then third would be like one more thing you can do in a week. I think we very much overestimate the amount of energy we have to put into like stuff external to us. And then we don't leave the energy to fill our own cups with like movement or your spiritual practice, meditation, like taking a long shower or whatever it is that you want to do, and leaving white space for all of that to happen. So there's some tips for you though on that time bit there. Let's see here. Brittany's sharing it. I'll validate myself into bad decisions and out of responsibility. Yes, that's exactly what we will do. I see this too with folks who are really trying to break unhealthy habits, and not to be the unhealthy habit police, but somebody who's like really trying to change their diet for a medical condition, or somebody who is like, I don't, like maybe a person who buys a bottle of wine every day, but would really like to get a new car. And so that money could be going there, right? But we validate ourselves. We'll say, well, it was such a hard day. I worked so hard. So I'm going to go do this thing that's really just like shooting myself in the foot, because now I'm validating the thing, through my emotions. So validate your feelings. But then when we start to validate the behaviors as a result of the feeling we're having, that's when it's not helpful anymore. That's when it's not helpful anymore. Sharon's sharing, as a middle child, I always had to validate myself. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. My husband's a middle child, and he is a person who does not look for external validation ever, nor does he give it. He does not validate emotions, feelings, experiences, but he doesn't seek it either. He just is like, yeah, like you win some, you lose some. Carry on. And so I've often thought about that with him being a middle child. He's also an Aries sun, so I thought maybe that has something to do with it. And a Capricorn rising. And I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe it's the middle child. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. So yes, timers. Use the timers if you have not used a timer before. Kimberly is asking, and Carla's saying Kimberly is asking to explain the 3 priorities for the week. And Carla's saying, that's an afternoon for me. I get that, Carla. I get what you're saying. Yeah. So Kimberly, the 3 priorities in a week, I will say that depending on your life circumstance, 3 to 5, I think, is the sweet spot. But whatever it is, so when we try to do everything, when I teach energy and attaching to outcomes Think of it like spider webs. That's how I like to teach it. So you are casting your energy out all the time. Already today, I have worked. I'm one of those step counter people, so I've done like 4,000 something steps today. I've worked some. I made breakfast for my kids. That's pretty much it, I guess. I showered, but my energy has interacted with family. My energy has interacted with my goal of walking. My energy has interacted with work, right? And it's only 10:30 a.m. where I am. So your energy is attaching to all of this stuff. If you are trying to be superhuman and like declutter your house, paint this room, uh, volunteer for an organization, take care of aging relatives, you've got pets that need to be walked, you're trying to go on a girls' night and you're trying to go on a date with this person, and then you also want to get a raise at work, so you're really showing up at work. Your energy is flying everywhere. None of it's focused, and you're going to end up feeling resentful, burnt out, like you had no time for yourself. And it's because you're trying to do everything and your energy is just like it's a disaster attached to everything. So every week I like to ask this question of myself seasonally and then also in the week. And even during the day, I like to ask like every day sort of reset. But what are the things that are most important to you right now? So for me, work, I do work, right? So work is important to me. Um, I do have, obviously I've got two kids, and their schooling is one for this week because we homeschool and we didn't do any schooling last week. And so that's of importance to me this week. And I already know those two things are going to take up most of my time this week. So if I then were to say, oh, well, I also want to clean out the basement. My basement needs to be cleaned out. There's just one of these things isn't going to happen. If I were to say also that this is the week that I'm going to start a new exercise program, that's not going to happen because there's no time. So what is your greatest priority right now? What are your greatest priorities? It doesn't mean you don't do other things. Like it doesn't mean that I won't run to the grocery store. It doesn't mean I won't call my grandmother or see her this week. It doesn't mean that I won't, like, I don't know, whatever comes up, go for a hike or whatever opportunity arises. But when I sit down to say what's on my calendar this week, I'm at two. I got to work and my kids' school stuff. That's it. There's really nothing else that can go on my calendar for this week, because that takes so much time and energy for this particular week. So I am at two priorities for the week. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that every day things don't happen. So tomorrow I have a couple meetings. My kids have a dentist appointment. They have Taekwondo. I have content I need to create. Like there's a long to-do list, but they all fit into the work or the kids bucket. And I haven't added on extra things to overwhelm myself and get unfocused from what matters for this week. Now, there are other weeks where I've got more space, more energy, and I might add a third thing in there. But I really believe firmly in all my years of working with people that 3 to 5 is about what you get in a week. And that really depends on how much you work, if you work, and how much time that takes up. So what can you focus on in a week? So if again, you work, if you are, I don't know, remodeling your house, and if you are looking for a new job, like that's 3 very big time consuming things. You really don't have capacity for other stuff. So if you're trying to put other stuff on your calendar, you're going to set yourself up for self-sabotage. I talked about this we're taking a side train. We're going on a side train. Is everybody on the side train? I talked about this a couple weeks ago in our Mend Your Money Stories event about women who under earn, but then they're also under being in who they are. And that's what leads us to having under earning in money. And when you are trying to do everything, that's when you start to under be in your essence and your energy. And you will actually hold yourself back, lead yourself to feeling worse, more escapism sorts of tendencies, whatever your escapism is, whether that's alcohol, half a bottle of wine at night. I'm not judging you, but that might be it. It might be 3 hours of scrolling your cell phone. It might be like a whole season of something on Netflix you've watched 10 times. Whatever your thing is, your escapism, buying stuff you don't need, When you under be in who you are because you're overcommitting your energy in life, that is when you will start to get farther away from what your vision, whether that's your money vision, your life vision, because you can't show up in the areas that matter. So if I work a whole 9-hour day and then I homeschool my kids who are both neurodivergent, so that can be a very frustrating experience because it takes extra patience to teach them for 3 hours. Now I'm at 12 hours in my day and I'm like tired and I'm at my wit's end. And if I then said, in addition to that, I am going to go on a date with my husband, or I'm going to clean out my basement now for 3 hours, or in addition to that, I am going to go out for girls' night. What happens is that you end up just overextending yourself. So you don't have that pause to care for yourself, which is then where you go into the escapism. And I've been there. I know if I go for a glass of wine at the end of around 6 p.m., that is a pretty good signal to myself. I don't not drink, but I have a history of, I like to call it alcohol glorification in my family, definite alcohol issues in the family. And I see it in my younger self. So I will have a glass of wine, like with dinner with my grandparents. I always have a glass of wine. If we go to a restaurant, I'm like a burger and chicken wings and beer kind of gal. So I will do that. But if I find myself pouring a glass of wine because I had a day, that's a signal to me that I've disconnected from my energy. I've disconnected from who I am, and to back away because that one glass will lead to 4 glasses, a whole bag of something I shouldn't be eating that's going to give me a stomach ache. And I'm going to be miserable at about 1 a.m. when I can't sleep. So I know that that's like, oh, we're under being in our energy, Sarah. You and me, Sarah. I'm like talking about myself like that in third person, but we're under being, which will lead you to underperform in life, because then you wake up the next day grumpy and cranky and mad at the world and mad at yourself. And now you're under showing up because you're just mad at everybody and you're tired and you're mad at your body and you're mad at your head and you're mad at the people and you're mad at mad. And so that's how we start to earn less money, and that's how we start to be less happy. And it all starts by over putting ourselves onto things and then validating our experience and saying, well, yes, you're overwhelmed and you have so much going on. So of course you deserve this thing that you're about to do. And then we validate that, and then we feel crappy, and we do it all again the next week and the next day. And it's a vicious circle. And so we sit here on Sunday, we have a practice together where you pull out your planner and you look, what's my week going to look like? And it doesn't mean it always looks that way. I'll give you guys insider info. My week last week, it was like a fine week. I was away with my family. We were at a campground. I'm an RV person, if you don't know. And I was still working last week. It wasn't meant to be a vacation week for me. It was just like our family went to this campground, mostly for my kids, because there's a lot of kids stuff around. And I was still working. And so we had like one work thing that was a little like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do something about this. And then one of our payment processors like hard locked us out of money for a whole day. And said it could take up to 5 days to be reviewed. And then who knows what happens after that. So imagine, if you all have bills to pay. Imagine you have your bills to pay and you have all the people who work for you and you can't take any money out. And that happened this week. So that happened. And then we came home from this trip on Friday. It was our wedding anniversary, to find that a squirrel had been living in our house. We think it's a squirrel anyway, like pee and poop. And it smelled like death. And it's been 80 degrees in our house and we don't have central air. So it was even worse. And it was just Monday through Friday. All this happened Monday through Friday, right? And so I have like my plan for the week, and things happened that derailed the plan. But because I vision for the week ahead, I know how I want to feel, and I leave the space to feel that way, everything was handled because there was room to handle it. Everything was handled because there was room to handle it. And because I don't validate my feelings through, behaviors that just put me into a more negative energy, everything was managed. It was all managed. There were a couple things I didn't get done, and they'll just get done another time. But it's really the vision casting for the week ahead helps you to actually have the space for when life goes sideways. And and we teach this in magical self-care. So if you're in magical self-care, go back to that in the book, because we teach this in there. But when life goes sideways, if you don't have the foundation of self-care built, that's when it's chaos. And then we teach the 5 I's in holistic witchery. I run that through my head every single day. How do I want to feel? What do I have to do to feel that way? What shadow emotion is coming up for me? And what's it going to look like when I reset right now and I do the thing to feel the way I want to feel? And then I move forward. So we have the tools, you have them, use them. use the tools, my friends, use the tools. Oh, Tony had a week too. I'm telling you, Gemini season's not on my side. I have 5 planets in Sagittarius, and Gemini is the opposite energy. So I was sort of chalking it up to that. And I was like, my Sagittarius is repelling Gemini season, like actively repelling it. But it was all good, all fine, all fine. All right, then. Well, I'm going to leave you all there. Speaking of holistic witchery, if any of you are in there, we have a class in 20 minutes. So I'll see you there if you're coming. And we have our free midsummer solstice event on June 17th. So it starts in just about a week. If you're not registered for that, get your magical patootie registered. It's going to be a fun week. We're going to talk sun signs and chakras and Mercury and shadow. And we're going to do a midsummer ritual. And it's going to be so delightful. And we love hosting these events. That's a free event. You can find the link. We've been sending out emails. It's here in the circle space, social media, wherever. And get yourself signed up for that free event. And remember, if any of you are in our programs and you need help getting reacquainted, finding your way around again, go ahead and reply to any email that we send you, and Jenna will get you back to the class site, log in, whatever you need. We want you to know, find your way around the virtual hallway. So be sure to reach out if you need help finding anything. We are there to help you. All right. Yes, I love spending this time with all of you. I will see you next Sunday too. It's Father's Day in the US, but I will be here with bells on for a coffee chat next Friday, next Sunday, next Sunday too. All right, everyone. Have a great day ahead, and I will see you all around.